So here's a fun product that I bet a lot of people will think is cool. So what we have here is obviously two big wooden boxes with panel meters of some sort on the front. But the cool thing is that what we have here are these 2 meters, and these 2 meters here are showing the internet usage in my household in real time. So this is download, upload, download and upload. And if I were to say, run a little network connection speed test, you can see lots of activity. Download goes up, the upload goes up as well. Now it's upload testing. So what happens here is that these are actually hooked into my router, and that is updating at 1 hertz, the network usage. So they're somewhat, the scaling is between a cube root and a log root scaling, so that we get lots of nice visible activity even when there's basically small amounts of traffic, and yet you can obviously it doesn't rail out when you're downloading at 30 megabits a second. But so this is just obviously download and upload. We have download, upload, CPU utilization, and this is RAM usage in the router, just 0 to 100%. 0 to 100%. So my router is a box running pfSense, which is a BSD based, kind of a BYO router, and it is got a, it comes with, there's a module that you can grab for it that uses LCD proc for displaying on like a little LCD, and I've got a very irritating custom build of LCD proc that doesn't try to send HD 44780 command codes over the serial interface, and then that goes into, if we turn this around, you can see that we have, this is actually kind of an interesting, probably worth a video on its own. We've got a parallax propeller microprocessor, an XB for talking, 2 really rather shitty little dual H-bridge drivers, and this has just got 2 bipolar stepper motors on it. So this is actually kind of an interesting project in that if you need like big, nice visible, these are actually black, they've just still got the protective paper on them. So these are, they're just mounted on the motor. It's laser cut polycarbonate. I had a bunch of these. It actually was 8 of them made by Pololu, which is a company that just does turnkey laser cutting on. You just upload your drawing and they cut it for you. I think it was about $25 to have a bunch of them done. I just knocked it up in 3 million. And then this is obviously just a little dev board, an XB for wireless interconnectivity. These are just 2. They're H-bridge motor drivers with really obnoxious Chinese ICs on them. So the reason they're obnoxious is because they're designed for driving normal motors, which means that if you tie, basically, you've got 2 half bridges in there, but if you feed, if both your inputs are high, both of the outputs are low. So you have to kind of fidget around a little bit with how you're driving it to make it work properly. I've actually wound up splitting some of the phases around here just to make the stepper motors work properly, because one of the things I'm doing here is I am micro-stepping the system. Again, because I've got a lot of processing power here. The propellers, I like them, but at the same time, there's a lot of tasks for which they're not easy to develop for, mostly because they have, really slow interpreted language and really fast assembly and nothing in between. So if you can write it in assembly, it's great, but I'm really not a very fast programmer, and assembly makes me a very, very not fast programmer. So, if I can leverage, there's some nice PWM libraries I was able to just use off the shelf. And obviously this is just a dev board. So, basically the way this works is, obviously it's tracking the own positions, but the clever bit is that basically we've got little rubber-coated things, and when you power it up, it just runs the needles, continually steps, basically in this situation counterclockwise and clockwise, more than like half a rotation. So, and then it sets itself as 0. So what you can do is you can then figure that, they're stopped by the stop. So after you've run it that way for a while, determined by how far, because I can, kind of twitch it, so the idea is that if it's way up there, oops, I can find the power connection, so it assumes that it's just reached 0. And then actually there's the system in here re-zeros about once every probably 4 to 5 hours. And then these are just, there's some little bits of silicone tubing on these screws, just so that it's not really obnoxious, because I had bare screws in here and make this horrible clicking noise. But, yeah, so this is, actually this is kind of 2 generations of this project. This is the much older, oops, I just bumped the power connection again. Obviously they're designed to hang on the wall, so the power connections come out the bottom. So this is actually, this is kind of a fun piece of electronics, just because it's one of the oldest PC boards of my own design that I have. There it goes again. I think I did this PCB like 6 or 7 years ago, and it's kind of ghastly, to be honest. I'm not exactly, oops, I just disconnect the USB. So obviously lots of panel meters. It's got a power backup. So the idea is, I like steampunk. I'm, kind of a steampunk enthusiast. So the idea is that, well, first of all, I'd like to, take one of these meters here. And then the idea was for there to be like a cool steampunk style brass nameplate, like turbo meter, to play off, Neo-Victoriana memes, because, I kind of find the conjunction of the two amusing, which is, kind of over here. So you can see that these are, there's some RGB LEDs in here that, what happens is it shifts between, green and blue on each half, and every time it receives a packet, it reverses the, kind of the shift direction. So that's kind of it's working status update, and then theoretically when there's no packets, these go red, but it turns out that, so basically when the internet connection goes down, the idea is that it turns red. It doesn't work that well, because it turns out that the network interface continues to send like, hey, is anybody out there, discovery packets? And my modem, actually when it loses its connection, it comes up with a local DHCP server that lets you query the modem status remotely, lets you look at how far it's booted and so forth. So it actually doesn't really properly detect network not present, because there is always a network present, or there's at least always traffic on the network interface. It needs to be rethought, but I really don't enjoy working on BSD, because nothing lets me virtualize it, and I don't have a box to throw at it, like a spare box. But anyways, I kind of don't want to show this because it's horrible, but you've got a little board I designed for this a long time ago. So obviously normally there's a little, basically this is just a panel mounted USB connector, and it there's a little bit of wire here that you can hang it, balances nicely, and then there's a propeller, and then these are actually some shift brights, which are just like a commercially available, just a dev board with an RGB LED and with a shift register based, or it's not a shift register based, it's a PWM LED controller, whose model number I don't remember. And then there's an XB and a whole lot of hacks. This board was designed before I was, without a built-in programmer, so you'd have to use an external programmer. And then I added, programming, because it had an FTDI device, but there was an external programming interface, and I added, programming over the built-in USB port at a later date. It was, I did a lot of stupid shit on here, like these connectors were all slightly too close together, so you just kind of had to squeeze them and other shit like that. It was, well, I learned a lot. But I think this is probably 4 or 5 years old now. And, well, it's not production quality, it's been happily running for 4 or 5 years. So, it's just kind of a neat thing. Also, you can apparently tell that my graphic design skills are anywhere near even my electronic engineering skills, and which is why this has never gone anywhere. I actually just got around to painting the other one, and I'd like to make like some nice panel meter gauges type style, kind of like this sort of thing. Actually, I'd like to make things for this that actually have a proper scale on it, but just my ability to use, make nice pretty drawings is just not there. I can make them, and then I think they don't look very good, and then I don't do anything with it, and then I go off and do something else. But this is just kind of a fun project that I bet people would think is kind of cool. I don't really want to go poke into my router. Well, hang on a second. So, we go over to the server closet. So, in here, just let's see, which is it? It's yeah, this is just so just off the tripod. Cables are everywhere. So this is just a, as you can probably see, it's just a super micro atom-based motherboard, and it just sits there and acts like a router. It's a dual NIC, and it actually has an internal USB port. Let me see if I can pull it out. Hold on. Well, there went the internet. There went the internet, yes I know. There it goes. There's one minor accidental depowering. See if I can't grab the goddamn power brick. Hopefully this will come up without being really cranky, because I don't think it's been rebooted in a couple of years. Fortunately, this is one of the Supermicro motherboards with IPMI, which means that if it totally hoses itself, I can just hit it over the network to fix it. Alright, well that's a promising noise. That just means it woke up, and hey, Needles is moving. Oh, it even got a DHCP address already. Cool. Well, that didn't take long to fix itself, which is nice. Geez, half the time that thing reboots, it's just a fucking nightmare. Anyways, let's see if I can actually get the top off without dropping any more screws into the bottom of my server closet. Let's put too many screws in anything. One screw in the center, yeah. Assholes. Alright. So, I can just kind of hang on the monitor cable. Oh, no, I can. So, so if we look in here, you can see here is the router. It's a just an atom-based motherboard. But you can see one of the nice things is there's an XB on there, and if you look, where is that? Oh yeah, right there. It's a kind of really horribly shaved, but it's a USB connector. I just had to kind of have at it with a knife so that the top would fold over. You can see that this was designed for kind of a different server. So I just made like a little cardboard duct for this to hold so that the fan actually blows air in properly, because there was no airflow in here otherwise. The only thing that really provided it was the power supply, which is not here. This is using one of these little 12 volt input power supplies, which have a brick, which are actually really wonderful because the whole thing runs really cool, so and then we just have a single hard drive, and this does a few things. It runs like a little DNS server, so that I can have names properly reserved both inside, resolve both inside and outside of my network. I use a DNS provider for a lot of it. It's got dual gigabit NICs, but more critically, it's got dual Intel gigabit NICs, because I don't know if you've ever tried to deal with Realtek network interface cards under Linux, but it is a clusterfuck. It's just like I actually have a couple, well, I have one server actually, this one right here, that was running Linux, and so this was running Linux for a while. It's also got a bunch of RAID arrays. That's what actually, this is my primary NAS, which is just full of disks. 10 terabytes. It's 8 well, no, it's 12 terabytes, but it's 8 terabytes visible because it's in RAID 6. So it's 6 drives. So it's 7, I don't remember. It might be 7 drives. Then this just has a bunch of 1 gig drives, and this right now it's just a Hyper-V host that runs a whole bunch of virtual machines. But I was trying to do it under Linux for a while, you know, because I like, you know, it was running CentOS for a while, but it just didn't go anywhere because CentOS is not basically Linux and Realtek NICs have all sorts of fun and mostly unresolvable issues. Like, it would seem to work fine, but once you got up to like 600, 700 megabits per second across the NIC, you know, on the network interface, it would start dropping packets, and, you know, the SMB connection would start hosing, you know, would get hosed, and it just wasn't a viable, you know, it would just, there were all these weird bugs, and it would only, you know, they only manifested under, you know, extremely high load. So you know, you'd set it up, you know, I'd be remote administering it usually over, you know, X11 tunneling, because VNC sucks. And, you know, then you'd load it, and your SSH connection would drop mysteriously without any explanation. You know, it would just kind of silently fail, and, you know, then you know, your network connection would fail, and then you'd connect back up to it and be like, oh, hi, you know, what happened? Where'd you go, man? And, you know, I just, you know, actually what wound up happening is I bought a $20 Intel PCIe gigabit NIC, you know, with an Intel silicon on it, and dropped that in there. All the problems went away, which really just, I was not exactly enthusiastic when I figured that out, because, you know, I spent literally like 2 or 3 weeks, you know, it wasn't solid, but it was, you know, 2 or 3 weeks, you know, in the evenings just kind of going, what the fuck? You know, because it wasn't, you know, it would kind of, it looked like it was working, except, you know, under hard to repeat circumstances. And then it would just kind of, you know, when you weren't looking, it would just kind of go. But, yeah, so that's just kind of a fun little, you know, you can see they're already active again. You know, that actually was probably one of the few situations where the status indicators would actually work properly, because when the router is gone, there's no packets. So if I just plug that in, kind of, what's this? There we go. So you can see it starts pulling. You know, it takes a couple seconds to figure out where it was, find its end. You know, one of the things, it's kind of interesting being able to watch it, because, you know, I noticed that periodically, like once every 30-something minutes or something, you've got a really high CPU usage spike for a very short period of time. So I'm not sure if there's, you know, extremely high processor usage spikes. Like, I don't know if there are CPU usage spikes, you know, very narrow, very short, you know, rapid CPU usage spikes very often, and then it's just, you know, the sampling window is very small, or if it periodically there's like flushing a cache to disk or something. It'd be kind of interesting to do like a longitudinal, you know, a really high resolution longitudinal, you know, analysis of CPU usage on stuff like that. But all I can say is BSD is a bitch. And LCD Proc's auto build system is opaque to the point of I have no idea what I'm doing. I think mostly I should probably just not be programming, but yeah, stuff. So anyways, there's just a little fun thing. So these are actually kind of fun. You can see that actually the that one's drawing, you know, oops, I just accidentally hit the brownout reset. So it draws about 300 milliamps at 5 volts. So the cool thing is they can both run off USB. Like, actually, I just have a cheapo USB charger, which is what I use to power this continuously. So it just sits on a USB charger, the same one for that one, though it's got mini USB and just a power jack, which is what I'm using right now. And you can see the power modulates a little bit as the step states change, but it never draws more than 500 milliamps. So yeah, cool. I hope you thought this was just a fun little project. I'm not really going to release the files because that one is just made up with dev boards and this one is such a nightmare. But you know, fun stuff. Just, you know, kind of the kind of thing you could probably do. You know, you could replicate it with an Arduino without too much trouble if that's your kind of the thing that you are interested in. You know, I mean, it's just serial communications and other stuff. The real challenging part is, well, it wasn't even that hard. It was just annoying. It's just getting the, you know, the automatic reporting working properly. But LCD proc does most of that. Though pfSense is kind of weird, and rather than using the, you know, so LCD proc is a client server thing that talk over a TCP socket because apparently somebody thought that was useful. You know, I think if you want to show, I mean, the advantage is that you can have one client and it can be showing, you know, you can have a client on one computer and then you can have the computer that's running the LCD somewhere else. So you can, you know, pipe your network stuff, you know, your status stuff over the network. Seems like there should be separate tools for that, but whatever. But pfSense actually uses a PHP script as the client, and then the server is the thing, and it's just a mess. I wanted to, you know, the stuff I have is not, like I can't upgrade the pfSense or the LCD proc install because it'll just hose everything. And I had to do a whole bunch of, you know, even getting file access on there is a mess because all I have is SSH. And I'm Linuxy, but I'm not that Linuxy, you know, so, you know, and it doesn't have, you know, there's none of the utilities that you have normally. I normally use Nano because I'm apparently not manly enough to use VI, and it's, you know, not there. And terminals are always cranky. They need a terminal where you can, you know, copy a whole file, you know, a huge amount of ASCII text, and then just paste it into the terminal and it goes across the network. But none of the terminals I've really played with in Windows did that, or didn't at one point 5 years ago, which probably means they do now. Anyways, yeah, so fun stuff.